And could not be happier to welcome in a national champion, Steve Risley, and even more than that, how many guys, Steve Risley, how many guys, welcome, first of all, and thank you. How many people have won an NIT and an NCAA championship?
Well, I don't think anybody from Indiana has, have they?
No, but I mean just in general.
Yeah, I don't know how many. Well, at one point in time, the NIT used to actually be a bigger tournament than the NCAA tournament.
Right.
Back in the 50s and 40s, the NIT was the premier tournament to go to. I would bet you probably can count it on one hand how many teams over the course of a 4-year career have won both tournaments. And the great thing about that is when we won the NIT in 79, the final 4 teams were what? Purdue, Ohio State, us, and I can't remember who the 4th team was. But they were all great basketball teams. That's when the NCAA only took 48 teams. And a lot of great teams got kicked out. Didn't get to play in that big dance. And so we all went to the NIT and played, and it was a whole different tournament back then than it is now.
Absolutely.
The crappiest part about that is, Jim, we didn't get a ring for winning the NIT.
Really?
Nancy did not make us a ring. Nancy being Coach Knight's wife at the time.
Right.
So she got a pendant out of it. I saw her pendant one day she wore. It said NIT champions, but no rings for the players.
Did you get anything?
No, well.
A t-shirt? No, not even a t-shirt?
Post even for having to play in the NIT and not playing in the big dance when we went in and met with Coach one-on-one. We all got rings.
I can only imagine. Indiana basketball now is kind of not what it was. It hasn't been that for quite some time. And it's just, it's been a vicious cycle. There's been some hints of success in the last 2 years, but not since Tom Crean was here when they won a Big Ten title. Have they really even sniffed heading in that right direction? And now this season is a season in which they're not going to make the NCAA tournament again, which is just not what anyone expected. And the fans certainly did not expect that. But this team is one that's not made up very well. It's got wonky. It's a wonky roster. And they take on a Purdue team tomorrow, first of all, that is the opposite, that is put together as a team perfectly, and that complements each other. But Indiana basketball is just not we saw Anthony Leal make that statement when he had a great game, playing for the name on the jersey, but that seems to be gone. And I don't know if it's because there's too many guys that are, instead of being considered on scholarship, or on the payroll. And that just seems to have changed a lot.
Yeah, well, where do you start? I mean, you got we have another hour to go.
Yeah.
All your problems in about an hour. It's going to take that long. First off, you got to say, in terms of what our level of expectations are, we were spoiled rotten for 29 years. We lived a charmed life. We lived on top of the hill in the castle. We had, arguably the greatest college basketball coach of all time. We had the right mix of talent coming from basically 4 states, Michigan, some, but mostly Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. We had great assistant coaches that came in and went out and ran their own programs to varying degrees of success. So to compare the Knight era to today is probably more normal what a struggling program would do, who does not necessarily make great coaching decisions, hiring decisions.
And that's where I think that people are not grasping. That, to me, is this all lies on the administration, and I'm not even talking about the current administration.
Right.
I don't know that I've ever seen a different amounts of administration make so many mistakes than has happened at Indiana.
Yeah, they don't seem to be a good fit. The current situation now, and it's very hard for me because you have to understand. I'm very good friends with Mike. I mean, Mike and I and Wayne Radford all went to grade school together.
Wow, now that's going back.
Grade 7 Indiana Public School number 11, and Mike went to Broad Ripple because of where we all lived in that district. I went to my mom remarried and we moved to Lawrence, went to Lawrence Central, and Wayne went to Arlington. So we all ended up at different high schools. And then we all come back and play a year or two with Wayne, and then 3 years with Woody at IU. And so I've known Mike since I was about 6, 7, 8 years old. I think the world of Mike. He and Terry, his wife, are wonderful people. They've got a great family. Certainly a poster child for the legend and lore of Indiana basketball. But in my opinion, what's happening is Mike is coaching this basketball team like an NBA team would be coached. The way his substituting patterns are, the way everything is being done gives me the impression that he's running his personnel situation like an NBA team would run theirs. You got to look back, and Mike has no college coaching experience other than the 3 years at IU. And I think there's a world of difference there between coaching college basketball and coaching the NBA. NBA, you're pretty much more of a babysitter.
A manager.
Yeah, how do I keep the egos in check? I mean, I go back to Paul Westhead, back on a road trip to Utah. Magic got pissed at him and said, either he goes or I go. Later that night, Paul Westhead was flying on his own plane back to L.A., terminated, right because Magic said one or the other. That's the NBA. In college, Knight said, there's the door, don't let it hit you in the ass on the way out. And many players left. Many players he got rid of because they weren't good fits. But I think that, and then you look at it, and I don't know anything about his coaching staff. I don't know anything. Somebody told me that most of them were leftovers from the previous coach.
Yeah.
But, I look back and then here's a guy who has no college coaching experience, who has at his grasp Dane Fife, who a great college basketball coach and assistant, studied under Tom Izzo, who probably is one of the best active coaches in the game right now. And then you've got Thad Matta involved in the program as well in a supportive role. I know Thad was dealing with some injuries, but Thad's taken Butler and he's rebuilding Butler right now. And here we are languishing now. We made the playoffs the last 2 years, didn't we?
They had to work their way in the first year.
It does not appear now that we're even going to make it.
Oh no.
I don't know. You look back in hindsight, it's always 2020. Hanging on to Dane and hanging on to Thad would probably have been very good for the program. But other than that, these kids that they play today, I don't think they understand what those letters, Indiana means on the front of their uniform. I don't think they understand the tradition.
Well, not the good ones, especially because they're coming. Half of them are coming because of NIL,
right?
And that to me, man. Now I will say Liam McNeely, who is coming in next year for Indiana, he seems to be truly bought in and wants to be. I was down there recently talking to him, and he was very optimistic about, I cannot wait to get to Indiana, put all the cream and crimson colors, put all the candy striped pants. I can't wait to play there. And he seems like he means it. His favorite movie is Hoosiers. He said he watched that growing up. So that's something good for Indiana fans to look forward to. But other than that, I agree with you 1,000%. It's been removed. Part of that's been because of a lack of success.
And this year is going to make it even harder to get quality players into the program, or players that are a good fit. I don't like the term blue chip. I don't like that. I've never considered Indiana to be what I call a blue chips program. And when I say blue chip, meaning I don't see it when I was there. We got Isaiah, who was blue chip through and through in my years. But other than that, we had Witt, we had Kitch, we had Landon, we had Ray, we had Jimmy Thomas, myself. We had all guys that were kind of so dadgum proud to put on an Indiana uniform and played like a team and played together. And they worked their tails off. I was asking my wife after the Penn State game, I'm like, so do you think they're going to do loose ball drills tomorrow? I know had we gotten beat by Penn State like that, we'd have just all grabbed a jar of Vaseline and rubbed up our knees and elbows and hips and said, here we go. This is not going to be pretty. And half the team would feign an ankle sprain all of a
sudden. Yeah, and I understand because it's a different era. So part of that falls by that. But the culture, and again, this is not on one person or one coach. It's just been eroded. The little roadie years were just horrific. That was like 4 years of being in the desert. But there was things that happened before that. You go back. Kelvin Sampson is the best coach that they've hired. Unfortunately, he was also a coach that didn't mind bending the rules, and that set Indiana back. And that was after at that point, they were still trying to recover from firing Bob Knight. And that probably would have lent itself to that happening because he's successful now. He was going to be successful probably at Indiana without question. But he could not wait for that rule one more year to be made a rule, and instead of it being a violation. But regardless of that, Tom Crean did a great job of getting Indiana. Then he lost him, and then they made the worst hire in the history of IU basketball, and that was that hurt. And then they didn't really know where to go. They could not. They wanted desperately to land Brad Stevens, and after that, they were like, okay, now what? So hiring Mike was great for bringing, I think, galvanizing things back. But now it's in danger of that falling apart because we have never seen the level of players that have stepped up and said, "Man, this is not. I'm not happy."
Yeah, no, you're young. I can't. I just would be repeating the same feeling I have. What you just said. It's a new era, a new world. I don't. I was giddy when we hired Mike. I'll be the first to admit I was giddy. I thought, man, great move. We finally got a player who's been associated with the game since he left Indiana, a beloved member of the Hoosier Nation. Selling out Assembly Hall was never a problem. I mean, we were always putting people in the seats. That fan base desperately wants to get back to, contending for national championships. But then it just, you saw pretty quickly that, okay, really what kind of coaching decisions are we making here along the way? And I go back to coaching like an NBA coach I would expect to coach. So I don't know. I don't want to sit here and rip on Mike because I like.
I mean, like I said, this goes back further than that.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's way back.
Indiana continues to do things.
I mean,
They can't get out of their own way, it seems like sometimes.
It almost starts with when they took Mike Davis over Dan Dockage. I don't know that maybe they shouldn't have just gone with Dan Dockage at that point and see what happens. I don't know.
Hey, who knows? I mean, with how things have gone, but it can be done because it's being done everywhere else, and I think that's a problem. That's the issue. I don't think it's ever been a chance for the new rules have made it easier, in my opinion, for Indiana to regain that glory. The NIL makes it easier because recruiting to Indiana is still not that hard. But whether or not people want to, outside of the Indiana fans, want to believe it or not, it's still a major program.
But is nil money attracting the kind of player we wanted in Indiana?
Well, it's not the type of player, but as far overall as a roster, it's how the rosters are being put together, though, as well.
Yeah. I mean, Xavier Johnson's a great example. He better try to push for a 7th year because I don't think he's ever going to make as much money outside of playing for all he's making on the nil program right now.
Yeah, and I thought about that as well. Not him per se, but it's just I don't know that guys are being recruited as far as what is best for a putting together an overall plan. I think that there seems to be recruiting stars, and hey, if I get this guy, that just makes it better automatically.
Blue chippers. I mean, I look at the Lakers out here in LA. I mean, they got a team full of all-stars. They can't win. They got Anthony Davis, LeBron James, a couple of shooting guards, another hot point guard or whatever. And I don't follow the Lakers that close. I follow the Clippers more. But, you got to have players that want to play together and that want to win. And who aren't more worried about the name on the back of the jersey as they are the name on the front of the jersey. And I think that's just what the nil program is doing to a lot of coaches. And unfortunately, it hits Mike because Mike doesn't have the experience a lot of more senior coaches do of how to handle that type of player in a college setting.
Yeah, you want a great example of this, and this is why I think that and Mike's a great guy. This is not about nothing, like you said. This is not about anything other than he was away from the college game for 40 years,
right,
in his NBA. But I look at someone like Nate Oates, who came from Buffalo, and Alabama hired him, and Alabama had instant success. Last year, Alabama lost 8 of its top 10 players. Their entire coaching staff, minus the head coach, because all 3 landed head coaching jobs. You had guys transfer. Let's see, Brandon Miller, Noah Clowney, and Charles Bidecka. Those guys all went to the NBA. You had Javon Quitterly, who went to Memphis. Jaden Bradley went to Arizona, and Mary Burnett, who went to Michigan. And right now, what is Alabama doing? They're just leading the SEC conference.
Yeah.
So that is the biggest indictment to me of the fact that the program is just not going in the right direction. And
the sad part is I mean, I watch more IU basketball now than I ever did. When I got it out, I'm like, I'm tired of this. I want to do something else. But the Big Ten is pathetically weak this year.
Yeah.
There is one decent team, and that's Purdue. They should make a run, but historically Purdue usually craps on themselves in the tournament. They find a way to do that. I hope it doesn't happen this year. I'd like to see Purdue hang a banner. What the heck? I don't care.
Boy, that's gonna ring tough in the ears of the Indiana fans.
I root for Purdue all but 3 games a year. The 2 times we play them in the regular season and then the championship game of the Big Ten tournament. Other than that, I'm a Purdue fan. I mean, Triple X Burgers up there, spectacular.